Yeah, I definitely don't have a computer for any of this. It's like my laptop. Every time I use it, I'm like, I hope this works.
Just keep the fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lat Mackey, and this is Sequence Break, episode 52, Princess Za. Here she is, Princess Za. Somewhere I'm pointing in the direction, wherever it is on screen. How are you doing? Hello.
Good. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for doing this and being here. This is going to be pretty cool and pretty exciting. I don't think we've had somebody on who has been speedrunning for the amount of time that you have, and I think that's a great place to kind of go visit and kind of hear your story and see how you got started in all of this. First things first, let's start with this. When did you get started in gaming? What's kind of like your story as far as it goes with any sort of gaming at all?
Yeah, it's actually related to Bonk, of course. When I was in elementary school, I remember playing Bonk's Adventure with one of my best friends, and she would come over to my house, and we would take turns playing different levels, and we would, with TurboGrafx 16 games, you can't pause it or save, so we would sit there for hours and play the different games, handing the controller back and forth. And I don't remember who played what levels, except for I always did the one which we call moving blocks, where you have to do the climb up and the blocks separate. And I remember it being hard as a kid, and it's definitely hard as a speed run as well.
Okay, so this is so cool because one of the things, folks, if you're not familiar with Princess Za or anything, we're going to be talking some TurboGrafx 16 and some Bonk. So I know that there's probably a world maybe some of you aren't familiar with. People who are here live, probably yes. But how did you get a TurboGrafx 16 in your house? Because that was like the console, at least in the States here, like, what the hell was that? Nobody knew anything about it. How did that even happen for you?
Yeah, so I actually ended up having to ask my brother this because it's really, I guess, a family console and my older brother's console. And so I talked to him about it. I was like, what happened? Like, I remember no one else knowing what the heck this console was as a kid. And he said that his friends had the other two consoles. Sorry. Is that coming through on my end? All right, no, there we go. Oh.
You're still good.
So his two friends had the other two popular consoles at the time, so he thought it would be cool to have this console as a, whatchamacallit, so that they could each have their own, be able to play across a few different ones.
Nice. I've always wondered too, like how people even heard of it at the time. So I've seen commercials now, like in retrospect on YouTube and stuff, but I don't even remember seeing like something on TV about the TurboGrafx 16, like it was this like mythical thing. I didn't even know why actually nowadays I know why we had it in my house. Same thing. My brother was one who was a geek and was into all that kind of stuff. And so that's why we got one, but it just seemed like nobody had ever heard of it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you was Bonk your favorite game growing up, or did you have any, or is that the game that you actually had? I mean, I was curious, like how you end up, finding that game specifically. Yeah.
So a few things is Bonk was the only one I could beat. We had about 10 different games. I had Splatterhouse growing up. I had Keith Courage. I had Legendary Axe. I can't beat some of those still. Bonk was the only one that I could beat consistently as a kid.
Now, do you still have your childhood copy? Are you playing on your childhood copy when you play the game?
Yes, I'm playing on my childhood console, childhood controller with the childhood copy of the Hue card.
That is so wild. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. It's kind of cool that you still have that stuff. Did you play any other games? You mentioned that the three different consoles. Did you get a chance to play NES or Genesis or any of the other kind of consoles when you were growing up?
No, I mean, I guess that's not true. My friends had like N64 and stuff like that, and we'd go over to their house and play those things. Like I remember renting games from Blockbuster, but that's when we went over to their houses. At my house, it was only TurboGrafx 16.
And, okay, I'm glad you mentioned rentals because those come up quite a bit. I'm sure for people who grew up with these consoles, renting was like a big thing, but never did I ever see a TurboGrafx 16 game for rental,
Never, no. I didn't even think about it. Like, I didn't even know that there were other games. Like, as a kid, I was just like, oh, there's these 10 games, and, like, that's it. Like, I never thought to, like, ask for more games or anything like that.
That's all there was. So, as you're getting older and stuff, did you ever play modern games or anything like that? Or when, was there any sort of transition or any other consoles in your life as you grew up?
Not really. My brother had downloaded some games to our computer that I played, so I was able to play some that way. So I've experienced some Genesis games like that, but mainly just TurboGrafx.
So first of all, that's kind of unique, by the way. That's kind of wild that you just haven't, there's not a whole lot of other gaming besides this. So then obviously that begs the question, how the hell did you get into speedrunning from all of that? Like, because that's pretty far-fetched. So.
Yeah, I think there's actually a funny story of us like out at a restaurant with some friends, and they were talking about speedrunning and esports and all this other stuff. And I was like, it was about 2 years ago now, and I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no idea. And I was just like blown away because it was like, you know, they were talking about how it's $1 billion industry and like how these esports teams have like psychology people and like all sorts of crazy stuff and speed running. And I was just like, you know, I was just like fascinated, but more so like that was a whole world I'd never experienced. Not that I was like, oh, I'm going to be a speedrunner. Like, that's not what crossed my mind at all. I was just like, oh, that's cool, I guess. Like, that's crazy.
That is so wild. And so was there, when you had heard about this, did you go to YouTube? Were you watching some things, or is this something you just decided to try yourself?
So I think I had watched a previous like GDQ, like a few runs, but I didn't really get it or appreciate it, I don't think, as much because I had never played the games that people were running, so I didn't like understand. Like, you see some cool moves and you're like, oh yeah, that's really fast, like that's cool, but like I hadn't ever played Zelda, so Zelda, you know, being done in less than a few hours is like, oh, okay, I like, how long does that actually take? I don't know. So when I actually started speedrunning, the first thing I did was actually watch like a how to do speedrunning video, like the speedrunning 101.
There's videos like that out there. That's awesome. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think it's an interesting point because it actually does come up quite a bit with almost all speedrunners that have been on the podcast, that they saw a run of a game that they, you know, latched onto as a kid. So for a lot of us, it was the Mario and the Zelda, you know, the really popular games as kids. And so that was the thing that got us in, you know. So the fact that you didn't have that avenue, it probably wasn't as impressive. That's super interesting. What were some of the things so when did you decide then to actually try it yourself? What was the thing that finally kicked you into that, you know, that area?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like a lot of people last March, we got stuck at home and we're like, what can we do? And I luckily had the TurboGrafx 16 here, but we didn't have a way to play it. Because it has some weird connector. I don't even know what type of connector it has to this old, you know, it used to be connected to this like old wooden box TV that I had as a kid. So Red, my husband, actually found a connector that made it basically work. And you should have seen me when we hooked it up. I was like sitting on the ground, like super close to the TV because the cord for the TurboGrafx 16 is so short and like the controller cord's so short. So just as if you were playing as a kid, you're like sitting inches away from the TV playing the game. And I just was like a kid on Christmas morning. I was so excited. And so we got it out and I played it casually then, you know, like it took me like probably, you know, an hour and 45 or something like that after having not played it in like a few years.
This is kind of fascinating because I don't know how most people think, but I usually, when I first started playing retro games, I was like, well, there's these emulators and I can play this on my computer. I love the fact that you just decided to try to get a console that's 30 years old to try to work as your first attempt. That's pretty wild. Did you have a capture card or anything? Like, how'd you get that going?
I don't think we didn't need a capture card to stream it to the TV because it was just like HDMI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's how we originally got it going, and then but then Red kind of knew some of the other things around, like getting, you know, for the streaming side, like being able to hook it up, and you know, he's my tech guy, as the chat knows.
And he's also a Zelda fan, so he's got to be awesome. But, you know, no. Okay, that's cool. That's really cool. So when did you actually then, like, take the step to, like, time it and to, you know, maybe look into, had you heard of speedrun.com or anything like this? Like, did you know that there was this, I don't want to say competitive, but there were leaderboards and things like that? So
I don't know if I'd heard of it, but I'd never been to it. And one of our friends knew about it. And so my first stream was actually on Red's stream, like on Red's channel, and cool. I streamed me playing it. You know, I texted like my brother and our friends, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna play this game on Twitch." You know, like all all excited, and we didn't actually know how to do this. You know, we didn't know live split at the time or anything like that, so. He timed it on his phone. So like I start and Red's like timing it on his iPhone, and I finish playing it, and he shows the iPhone to like the people watching, our few friends, and one person in chat, our friend Happenstance, was like, hey, I think that's like I think my first run was like 44 minutes or something along that.
It's pretty good actually for a first run. Yeah.
That time frame. And Happenstance was like, oh, you're like 6th or 7th on the board. And I was like, that's cool. And then I wanted to I was like, how do I even find this board? What does that even, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah. But I was like, well, I think I could play this pretty fast. After that point, I was like kind of hooked.
That's so cool. So I got to tell you a little bit from my perspective, because first of all, there aren't too many TurboGrafx-16 speedrunners to begin with. But then secondly, there's even less Bonk runners, Bonk's Revenge, Bonk's Adventure, all the things. So when there's a new submission that comes on the leaderboard, I probably get way more excited than I actually should. So the fact that there was somebody who did this, I just thought that was really cool. And it was obvious that I think I don't know if you had, how many attempts you had done before you submitted your first time, but it obviously like you had done a couple, because that's a really good time for like a first one. What was it like going through that process to get to your first submitted run? It was trials and tribulations. What were you learning along the way?
So I think I didn't understand the speedrunning community. So first of all, I was just like speedrunning. I was trying to get as fast as I could, and like I thought the community would be, I guess, more competitive. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna submit my time whenever I like plateau. That was my like idea. Is like,
that's not a bad idea.
Because
yeah.
At the beginning, what's really fun about the beginning of speedruns is you're often saving minutes. Like you're shaving off minutes as you go. And so I would, do a run one day, and then a few days later we would save another minute. And so eventually I kind of plateaued. I don't remember what time I officially submitted as the first one, but somewhere probably in the 30s, I like plateaued, 33, I think maybe. And I was like, okay, I feel like I got to submit it now, because I'm not sure like I'm going to get, I didn't know how long it was going to be until I got the next time.
So one of the things I thought too that was interesting was that you chose to stream your attempts as well, and that adds this whole nother layer that we don't talk about too often in speedrun. I think I'd like to get more into this. That like that's an additional challenge to like pay attention to what you're doing while you're streaming. How did that how did you balance? Did you find was that easy? Did that come natural, or was that something that how'd that go?
So not only was I learning how to speedrun, but I had never been on Twitch before. Like I'd never watched it. And I think that had its advantages and its disadvantages, because I didn't know what other people were doing. I didn't know the production value that people put into it. So I just started. It was just me and a laptop camera and a laptop mic, built-in laptop mic, and the timer and the game. It was very basic, and I had to learn all these things. We've had so many start and stops of bandwidth and OBS and Streamlabs and all that kind of stuff that we learned along the way. But I would definitely say it's been super fun as well to stream all of them, because getting to interact with chat while I'm running, it definitely helped keep the energy going and keep up the grind on the game for sure.
And I hope this doesn't come off as insulting, but the first time that I saw you submit a run, I didn't believe, I thought your screen name might have been a joke, because I'd never seen anybody with a Bonk and related name, for a screen name. So I'm like, this can't be real. Somebody's just messing with me, like a troll or something. But turns out, I'm curious, had you started speedrunning, or had you picked out your screen name before you had started getting on Twitch and things like that?
I think I had done the run on Red's channel, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna do my own channel. And I actually originally wanted to be I wanted to be Evil Princess Za, but then I realized that her name was actually Pseudo Za, and I didn't think that sounded as cool. So
no, not really. Yeah, you made a good choice.
so I went with Princess Za, and it always makes me happy when someone recognizes it, because it is so obscure. I know it is so obscure, but if I go into someone's channel and they're know what it is, I'm I'm always blown away. Most of the time people think it's related to pizza, which I had no idea people would make that correlation.
Why related to pizza? Because
apparently some people call Za, pizza Za. And so people often come in and ask me if my screen name is Princess Pizza, basically, and no. Okay,
that is a new one on me. I learned something new today. There you go. Okay, let's get into the run a little bit, because Bonk's Adventure I have found to be a fascinating run, and we've seen a lot happen over the last couple of years thanks to John, Memory Test, all these people who've been working on the game and stuff like that. What were some of the tricks that you found like the most challenging to learn in the game? Because it's a really fascinating run.
Gladys. No.
Okay.
Gladys is, to me, like one of the hardest parts of the run from the boss fights perspective. I think some of the other challenging things about the run is, like, obviously the specifics on the turbo switches, right? So on the TurboGrafx 16 controller, you have these built-in turbo switches, which is really nice because you don't have to mash, but also there's like very specific moments, like on very specific strategies on turning them on and off, when to have them on, when to have them off, and flipping them on and off of the right spots can be kind of challenging, as well as just some of the, flower action. The flowers working only every other frame to spin you through the air can be quite annoying.
It's almost like you got to wait for. I mean, there's a fair amount of resets just in the first level, because there's three or four spring jumps right in the first, the very first screen of the game. So I completely agree with you. It was one of the first games that I ran that I actually started using the turbo switches, turning on and off. And if you're playing on Virtual Console or on emulator, then what's the nice thing is you can just map a turbo button. But if you're playing on a real controller like yours, you have to flip the thing on and off. Did you start doing that from your very first run, or is that something you've worked on as the time has come down and down?
So I definitely think I learned some strategies, and I think one of the nice things was being able to watch other people play, and so I was like able to see, like, I knew I could watch a run because I knew Bonk so well. I could watch a run, and I could kind of tell what people were doing in the run. So I'd look at your runs or look at some Uber Discos or Great John's and be like, oh, okay, I can kind of figure out what they're doing here. And when I was a kid, I just always played with the turbo switch on for spinning through the air, and I just spin through all of the levels. So that's kind of how I started.
There you go. That's actually not a bad idea. Can we pause for just 1 second? I'm getting. Is your camera falling out of focus for some reason? It's on our end. It's looking
maybe.
like it might be.
Sorry.
If it's got an auto, it's okay. I might as well grab it now before it.
I tried to figure out how to set that up so it wouldn't do it for Discord, but it couldn't quite figure that out.
Come on, camera.
Are we still out?
We're still out just by a little bit. Maybe it's give it a. That's what I do on mine. Oh, we almost got it. No. Oh, there we go. Cool. Okay, now we're back. Thank you for that. I think that's Memory Task says it the best, where the floor is lava, and this is one of those games where that's really the case. But it makes the game super interesting because there's all these things you can do with the spins and different enemies you can bounce off of and stuff. And I've noticed even your own route has kind of evolved as you've played as your time has come down. Is that things you've tried through experimentation as well? I mean, are there any things you've tried out that have kind of like, hey, that worked, that didn't work?
Yeah, I think that, we're kind of at the fun part where you just gotta like throw stuff at the wall and see if you can save some time. Really what the coolest thing that's happened recently is I was really bored one Friday night and I was just practicing level 1-1. For those, because I play on the original console, I don't have save states. So to practice the game, I play it all the way through. And so really the level I have the most practice on is 1-1 because I play that over and over again. But I decided to try to do some of the task strats in 1-1, and just after a couple, just going at it over and over again, we were able to incorporate that into the run and like shave off 6 seconds or so on like the first level, and it was really cool.
That is why, yeah, that's one of the things that is one of the biggest challenges facing TurboGrafx 16 speedrunners is we don't have save states. Some games do have stage select, which is like amazing if they do, Splatterhouse being one of them, but like Bonk, it makes it really challenging to practice anything in Bonk. Have you tried, let me ask you this. Have you tried any practice with the Mini? Is that delay too much for you? I'm curious if you've tried any of that.
I tried it a little bit, but it doesn't feel right. I don't know if it's really that much of a delay, but it just feels weird. And I have actually gone in and set up save states because I really do need to practice the boss fights round 2 and Evil King Drool a little bit more. And to get there in the run, that's like 22 or 23 minutes in. So like that takes a long time, and then to like practice it again and again. So I have set them up, but I haven't really used it to try to do it.
So in prep for our chat tonight, I rewatched your most recent PB, which is the world record currently. Excuse me. And I'm wondering, was there any moment where you felt or you knew that you were on a good pace, that if you just finished strong, like does that happen at all during this run?
Yeah, I mean that run is actually quite crazy because I think the timer is green the entire time. Mm-hmm. And and so where I'm really at in the runs is there's a certain level, we call it angry lava level. I think it's like 4-1 right before you play Punchy Pedro. And that level can take 20 seconds. Like it can easily add 20 seconds to my time. So basically, once I get past that level, then I know kind of my next big stretch is doing boss fights round 2. So when we were pretty green coming out of that, I felt pretty good that we would be set up to save enough time. But man, boss fights round 2 is can take a lot of time too. So we actually lost about 15 seconds there in the run. So there's actually 15 seconds to be saved off of my run for the world record. Yeah.
As a speedrunner, that's got to be brutal just to, know that there's just 15 seconds out there, Let that on the table.
Yeah.
I guess I never get tired of playing any of the Bonk games. I know that's not for everyone, but it's interesting because your first submitted run was about 8 months ago. So you've been doing this for a very short period of time, but you've put a lot of attempts in already. Is there any times where you've needed a break or burned out, or have you been has it felt pretty good still? So, for this long?
I think there were some times where I needed a break, and then there was some just like impromptu breaks when I couldn't figure out how to get the stream working or something like that. And I found that if you do take a break, you can come back and kind of just a few days. You can come back and kind of do it fresh, and it works a little bit better. But I mean, I played this game every night for almost 9 months straight. So it's almost weird to not play it now. I just.
Spoken like a real speedrunner. There you go. I've noticed a lot of people, at least on this podcast, the first game that they've speedrun, at some point or another, they're going to come back to it. I have rarely met somebody, although admittedly I don't have in the tens of thousands that some people have on these attempts. So maybe one day that'll happen. But is there a time? Do you have a goal in mind now that we're at this level of your seconds become very important? Do you have a goal in mind of a time you want to hit?
I'm not sure. I mean, I definitely think there's a good 20 seconds still to save on the run. So maybe ideally I would save those 20 seconds. I'd love to get it into because right now it's a 27:51. If we could get into lower 27s, that would be really cool. Or even break that 26. I'm not 100% sure it's possible, but you never know.
The people who listen or watch this podcast are probably sick and tired of me talking about Bonk, but I think it's this really good example of the community working together. For those of you that aren't aware, the taskers and the RTA runners share a Discord. Information gets shared freely. People who did the task still task it every once in a while. If they find some new strat they try out, and there's a wealth of information that has been shared back and forth. What's been your experience in the community learning and kind of doing some of this stuff?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I thought it would be more competitive. And so whenever I came into the community and submitted the run, I feel almost immediately after that, you came to my channel, and I think you might have actually been the first raid to my Twitch channel. I think you might have been the first one. Yeah. And, you came in and started talking to me about it, and then Uber Disco came in and gave me some tips, and the great John, and everyone was just super helpful and how having to figure out the run. And just I really learned that the speed running was more about just being the best, you playing your best at the game and helping each other out doing to do that. And I thought it's pretty cool. I'm competitive by nature, so it was a little weird for me at first, but I really like it.
It's funny. When we started off the podcast, Stormcrow raided in, and he's been on the podcast, and I talked with him about this, that I had this experience probably similar to yours, but this is one of the things that I really love about speedrunning is that I had just started running this game, Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti, and he was the world record holder, still isn't it? And it's because of speedrun.com, you can 2 clicks, you can be on their stream and they could be watching live. And people have been so friendly, sharing information. People still do develop strats on their own when they're off stream and things like that. But at some point, it's going to be shown. So, most people are very willing to share information and share strats and help cheer each other's on. It's amazing what you'll do if you're playing a game that other people are into. It's really a kind of an interesting example of that. I guess is there anything left besides the PB times? Or would you like to? Are there any other Bonk games you want to run? Have you tried any other Bonk games?
So. Confession is I can't beat Bonk's Revenge on expert level.
Oh no, okay. Well, we'll have to fix that. But
So, and it plays.
This is going live, right?
I know. That's why it was a confession. It was I don't know. I don't know if I'll run the other two. Part of me thinks like you kind of have to, like they're the Bonk's games, but they play so different than Bonk's Adventure. It's really very weird game to me.
I'm curious. It must have been done by a different development team because the whole engine is different. Like Bonk doesn't even play the same as he did, in the first game. So.
The jumps mess me up on the like flower springs. I'm like, what is totally going on here?
Did you ever play any of the ports of Bonk's Adventure? No worries if you didn't, but there's one on Nintendo. They're all and Game Boy and some other things.
No, I've never played any, and I hadn't really heard about any of them until I had started streaming on Twitch. And then, like, other people would like, oh, have you seen this? And then they'd go stream it so I could see it. Or, have you seen the NES one? No, I haven't seen it. They stream that. Have you seen the GameCube one? No, I haven't seen it. And they'd stream it. And it was fun just to see them all. But obviously, the TurboGrafx 16 one is the best one.
Totally agree. Timbo Slice says the turbo flip is different in Revenge than Adventure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things I think people, it's kind of almost a shock when you try it because it is significantly different in some of the other games. So absolutely. Okay, so you're obviously a TurboGrafx 16 person. What other games have you, well, I guess I know which ones. Well, tell us some of the other speedruns you've been attempting on TurboGrafx 16.
So this one you don't know, actually.
Oh, cool.
I have the world record in Chase HQ.
What?
Because I'm the only person that's ever run it. So
hey, it's a free world record. Take it. It goes on the profile.
I love that game as a kid. I also could not beat that game as a kid, and so we saw that it didn't have a world record. It didn't have anyone run it, so we went and ran it. So that's my secret world record that we don't run.
Yes, this is true. I actually created an entire leaderboard just for myself, Murdoch. That's absolutely... Power Golf was my secret game that nobody else had played, so I'm like, perfect, I'll take it. I'll take the record. No questions asked. What is Chase HQ? Because I did notice it when I was looking on your profile, and I actually gave it a watch.
So Chase HQ is basically a cop trying to track down bad guys, and you run into them with your vehicle to arrest them. Okay. Yes. But my favorite
early 90s video game. That makes sense.
Yeah. But my favorite part as a kid was at the very beginning, they like show you a picture of the car that you're supposed to go chase down, and there's like a dispatch, and at the very end it says "Gotcha, Nancy," and that was like my favorite. So I had to play it just for that. But that card now, so I have the Hue card of it. It's kind of damaged. It works sometimes, but that card now goes for like $300. It's insane how pricey the TurboGrafx 16 games are.
And that's definitely one of the barriers to entry is just even to buy the console. It's not cheap anymore. I mean, not that it ever was, but that really sucks. Red, by the way, beat you. He was Gotcha Nancy in the chat before you even got there. But okay, so have you put any time into it? What makes it kind of going through it quickly kind of interesting?
The Chase HQ.
Yeah.
It's just a fun car game. It's cool. Not really anything. There's no fancy speed run strats as of yet, I don't think.
You haven't broken the game wide open yet? Well, come on, glitched. I'm just kidding.
No, it's just something I wanted to play through,
No, it's really cool. I think that's awesome that you're giving those games a try and showing them off, because that's one of the other things. Because there's not many of us who play these games on a stream or whatever, you're introducing them to an audience that may not have ever heard. I'd never heard of it, and I own the damn console. So Stormcrow brought this up, and I think this is important, that Mister is a good alternative. That's a good point. So for those of you into the modern type stuff, Mister has been a wonderful alternative for TurboGrafx 16 stuff, because you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on games. It can get real pricey really quick. Tell us a little bit about Splatterhouse. Why'd you pick up Splatterhouse?
So Splatterhouse, I actually had never beat until I was an adult. So I beat that a few months ago, and I think it's a really fun game. And so I think now my criteria for picking games is just something that I want to play over and over again, because whenever you speedrun a game, I didn't realize at the beginning how much you would play that game. I was kind of like naive, I guess, about what it took to, get a world record in a game. And so just picking a game that you actually want to play over and over again is like pretty key for me. And also just like the gameplay is fun. You get a butcher knife, you get a 2x4, you get a shotgun, you get a slide, like all that kind of stuff is fun. And
they're all awesome, but I couldn't agree with you more. It's got just some of the most fun gameplay, and it's not very long. That's the other thing too. It's not like, an hour-long speedrun or anything like that. You can usually, if you do the speedrun of it properly, you can usually do it under 20 minutes or so. So do you have a goal time? I've noticed you keep playing it, so you keep going back to it.
Yeah. So right now I'm trying to get to a 15 flat, and I think we got a 15-14 just like 2 days ago. But I can't do some of the strats yet, so I think one of the differences between running Bonk's Adventure and running Splatterhouse, because I knew Bonk so well, I could figure out some of the strats. With Splatterhouse, or we call it Murder Bonk, with Murder Bonk, I don't know how to do everything. Like I can watch Stormcrow, I can watch you, and I know that there are strats that I can't pull off yet. And I don't know how to do them, which is not what I'm used to.
It's definitely, that's actually one of the things I like about it the most, is how challenging some of this, and I, there are some I rarely get anymore. It's like where I've done it 3 times, and thankfully one of them was the PB. But it's like that's, I think, one of the main things that makes it really interesting is that it's a totally different skill set than Bonk, to say the least. In fact, it doesn't use any turbo at all, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there any other games that you've played that you've thought about speedrunning?
I think chat always picks out different games they want me to speed run, and I think the big, they're always like joking like, blah blah speed runs when, but I think right now I'm just playing on Splatterhouse. I think the other thing I just want to do is play through more of the TurboGrafx 16 library casually, because I can't even beat the games that I had as a kid, so I'd like to play some of those all the way through and play some of the other games that I have access to now more too. Some like a New Adventure Island is like a surprise game that I've really enjoyed and haven't been able to beat yet.
Right on cue, the chat is asking, JB was speedrun Alien Crush when? And then Fortnite from AJC. So there you go, right on cue. Fortnite speedrun. Okay, what is that? Okay, so one of the things that I've really enjoyed watching from the times that I've gotten to see your stream is that you're, in just a very short amount of time, you have a really fun and friendly community you've fostered. How did that happen? How did you get such a nice group of people together so quickly and make it such a warm and welcoming place? I just feel really fortunate. Honestly, I had no idea what to expect when coming into Twitch. I really had no, like I said, I'd never been on it. I had no idea. I think really what the community talks about a lot is the retro community on Twitch is just a really great community in general. So we're kind of in a directory that already has really awesome people, and then I think we just have a really, really welcoming crew. So like anyone in chat is always welcoming new people in. We just kind of have we call it like comfy and funny and chill vibes on the channel. So we just try to hang out, have fun, goof around, that kind of stuff. I tell this story probably way too often, but I'm going to throw it out there again, is that I had a bit of ignorance when I first joined Twitch, and I just assumed it was 15-year-olds who play Fortnite and who, all they do is play shooters, and everyone everyone calls everyone names. That's Twitch in a nutshell. Little did I know, so many people, in their 30s like myself who, grew up with these games, love these games, and like talking about these games. And this is like, my family and I'll tell you, my wife, not much of a gamer, so, I don't have a community to really share these kind of things with other people. And that's one of the great things about the Twitch, and like you mentioned, the retro community and speedrunning community. I completely agree with you that it's a nice place to meet, and I'm glad that you've fostered what you have, because it's a fun place to watch games, to say the least. And a lot of times you're showing off new games. Do you ever? When you pick a game to play, is it something that you've tried out beforehand, or have you gone in blind on some of these games?
No, we typically, and I think that's one of the fun things, right? Is to try something live on channel, and we're just kind of checking out and exploring it together. And one of my absolute favorite things is just to expose more people to TurboGrafx 16. When I was a kid, we kind of talked about this, it was just like no one knew what the heck it was, and like coming onto Twitch and finding other people that actually knew what the heck I was talking about, like what, like other people had this console, I had no idea. And then we get people that come in and know the console really well, and so many times we have someone come in that's like, oh, I played this as a kid, and I get to ask them what their favorite games were and what they had. And then on the other end, we have people that are like, oh, I've never played this, and they went and got the mini, or they went, or they have a Mister and they're going to try it out. So it's just like getting to just, I don't know, share the love of the TG16 with other people. It's just really, really fun.
So I'm already forgetting the date when this was, but a few months ago, you got a chance to participate in GDQ's Fleet Fatales. What exactly is that? What did you play? How did you get involved in that presentation, that marathon?
Yeah, so it's an all-female speedrunning event put on by the Games Done Quick team, and it, I had heard about it. My friends were, had been watching Games Done Quick for a few years, and they were kind of encouraging me to submit a time. Once I had gotten, I've gotten in the top 4 or something, they thought, you could do this. You could put it up, you could do it on Games Done Quick. And so I think I waited to the last day to submit. To get into Games Done Quick, you have to submit like a little write-up, what your game is, and submit gameplay. And so I waited till the last day, submitted it, and I didn't know that they would just publish the schedule. Like, I had no idea that's like how it would happen. And so I found out, I just randomly clicked on a link and I saw my name on a website, and then I think almost, a few seconds later, someone in the Bonk Discord had noticed it and pinged, had tagged me, and I immediately run upstairs to Red's office, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I was just like,
what did you just do?
Yeah, I was in full blown panic mode.
It's no big deal. It's just thousands and thousands of people are going to be watching you play this game. No worries, no stress.
And so then Red, being super supportive, was like, okay, well, if you don't want to do it, you got to tell them right now. And I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, hey, no, I'm going to go through with it. And, just stressed for the next 2 months about, actually doing the event.
I'm glad you did. What was your experience like? Because one of the things is that as much as that there's thousands of people watching you, once you get going, it's just you and your TV and stuff. So I'm curious, what was the actual? Because this comes up quite a bit. People, if you've never ran a game or performed in this kind of situation, it can be very nerve-wracking and stress-going. I'm curious if you still had that once you got going, or what was your experience like?
So a few things about that. I was pretty nervous. I had a lot of I was pretty stressed or anxious beforehand, and pretty anxious during the run. But it kind of like I played volleyball growing up, kind of like that. You get in game mode and you kind of just focus on trying to do what you're trying to do. The other side of that, though, is I actually died pretty early on in the run that I don't normally die. And it's on the 3rd level, I died in what we call the dino belly, and I took the wrong damage. And because I wasn't listening to game audio, I made the choice not to listen to game audio, and I couldn't hear the hit that I took. And so all of a sudden I'm dead, and I'm like, okay, no worries. And there's actually a life that you can grab right there right outside of the dino belly. And I didn't grab it because I wasn't too worried about it. And then, we get further on and further on in the run, and all of a sudden I have no lives, and I have less than half a heart left on, and I'm like, am I gonna game over? I don't know. That part was really stressful. But luckily we didn't. And, we joke as the community, we joke that that's the living on the edge run. That's we were so close.
Was there a moment where you finally realized that? Because you played it off pretty cool. I've watched the run before, and I'm like, you don't really notice until when there's no lives left. But
I definitely noticed. I think maybe it was we're in the flying chess pieces, as we call it, and this level where you typically spin through the level as Bonk, but the enemies can do super basically one hit and you can lose a heart. And I just remember being I don't have that much health left, but I'm coming to this level, how am I gonna I just think I just tried to play it normal. I don't know. It was so that part was pretty stressful, but I tried to play it as cool as I could, I think.
Well, it went great, and it's one of those. That's one of those things that there's really no way you can prepare for that, right? I mean, it's like, especially playing in a way that you hadn't normally played it. Was that for the audio setup, or is it just something like, I'm curious why you didn't play it with sound? Because that can definitely be a factor in how, if it's different than you normally play.
Yeah, it was for the audio setup because we were doing the Discord, and it was just kind of like, I don't have my streaming set up really well for that. Like I have a very low tech streaming setup. And so I just decided to forego the sound. And now I actually play it without sound, but
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you miss it? Miss the sound?
No, I mean, I have it on really low, but I can't really hear it that well. I don't wear headphones while I play anymore. But I think the really fun thing about the GDQ run is I watched it back because I didn't have chat open while I was running it, and I didn't watch myself. I just watched chat because I was too nervous to watch myself do it. But I watched chat just like be super supportive, and all the people that came out and supported the run. It just like, to me, that made it worth it. It was just like having fun and like getting to have the community having fun, getting to raise money for the Malala Fund, and just really finding other TG16 people getting hyped about that. So it was really fun. Yes,
all 12 of us were there. I'm just kidding. I joke. We've been very fortunate because of people like you who've had a chance to show these games off to more people. We have seen our community grow little by little, that people who find us and things like that. So it's pretty awesome. What a story. How fun to get through that. And once again, supporting the great cause. That's also the really big component of it. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because Stormcrow just mentioned it too. Malala Fund is a great charity, and it's great to raise money for something like that. So any plans? Would you like to do more stuff like that for charity? Because the charity thing is really cool, and I'm glad to hear speedrunners talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to participate in more events. I think, I don't know, I was pretty nervous about that first one. I think I've had enough time now to be like, okay, I'll do it again, but just like preparing.
Totally. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. This is something kind of interesting because you mentioned it early on that your experience with video games is primarily with the TurboGrafx-16. Now that you've been on Twitch for a little bit, you know that there's other games out there. Have you played or done anything outside of the TurboGrafx-16 at this point now? Yeah,
so I think I have played, like, we have a Switch, so I have played Untitled Goose Game, and I really like Mario 35, so we've played some of that. I play Overcooked 2. I make Red play Overcooked 2 with me because it's like a co-op game. So we do play some of that stuff, but I think one of the fun things about being on Twitch was I am finding about all these games that most people grew up with that I didn't know anything about. So we did Super Mario Brothers first time playthrough on the other day, and it took me like 7 days or something to beat the game. I didn't know it would be that hard. And I'd like to also try out some other like pretty classic games like the Chip and Dale game, and I'd like to play Battletoads and just, like, things I'd never heard of until a couple of months ago.
I would never think you a liar or anything, but when you said that you had never played it before, I was lurking your stream then. I'm like, she's got to be kidding. Everyone's played Mario Brothers at this time. Who's she trying to kid? No, there you go. You didn't. Okay.
The only way I had played it was actually Mario 35, which actually got me interested in trying to play the original. So it's like some of it. So I had played it kind of because you're playing it in Mario 35, but not quite the same.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I've thought about speedrunning Mario 1 because of playing it on Mario 35. You put so many hours into the game or whatever, and like, did any of the Mario 35 skill translate at all into the actual NES game?
It doesn't jump the same, like the bounces off the enemies and stuff. So no, I don't know. Besides like knowing the level design, I don't know if the actual gameplay helped too much.
Totally. No, I kind of had a similar experience, but it feels a little bit. I mean, it feels similar, but you're right. The jumping thing is just totally. I wouldn't say totally different, but feels very different. Okay, so we've done all this now. What's next? What are any other games that you'd like to spend some time with, speedrunning wise, or just stuff you want to play on stream? I
think, honestly, when I started this, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't know. I think I thought, well, you know what? I think I could be the best at this game, and I didn't really know what that meant. And I just played it through, and I just thought that was going to be the thing. But now that I've done that, I think what I'd like to do next is just explore more of the TurboGrafx-16 library and just explore more of those games and just keep kind of doing that stuff, hanging out with the community. I mean, I didn't expect to have such an awesome community to come hang out every night, and that's like definitely been a highlight of this whole of this whole experience for sure.
There's something, you mentioned that this has kind of started out as kind of a COVID thing where, we were all in lockdown and stuff. I know we're not there yet getting back to normal or anything that resembles what it was like before then. But as you go back to work and stuff, have you found it challenging at all to balance, some of, speedrunning, streaming stuff and whatever you do, normal real life stuff?
Luckily, my work is pretty, I'm a marketing consultant, so it can be pretty flexible in my schedule, which makes it a lot easier because, we put a lot of time into both, right? I stream every night except for Fridays for 3 hours a night. And so, there's prep that goes into that and all that kind of stuff. And then as far as I didn't really expect for all of this. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, even once this is gone, we'll keep streaming. We'll keep hanging out with the community. I think it's just really fun.
This is interesting. So you mentioned you go 3 hours, around 3 hours, sometimes more, sometimes less. Do you ever find yourself, is that a good time for you? Do you want to put more time in? Because I know my personal thing, I struggle to go for more than 2 or 3 hours, but some people stream for 5 or 6 hours. They're full timers and things like that. That's basically a job at that point. So have you found that that's the right time for you, or what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think so. And because I start a little late, if I do stream, I start at 9 p.m. Central. And so if I go over 3 hours, it starts to get to 12:30, 1, and then I'm getting tired. And I'm like, all right, I gotta go because I'm not making sense anymore. I'm not, whatever it may be.
Okay, that's been, I don't know if you have this experience with speedrunning, but that's always been my thing too, is where I know my brain is not focusing as well, but the next reset is just so easy, especially on TurboGrafx 16. I just got to do it. I missed this. I can do that better the next time. It becomes, it's not an addiction. It's just that if you have any sort of competitiveness in your brain, you're just like, I can do better than the last time. Especially
if you just had a pretty good run. I feel like that's my issue. I'm like, okay, one more time. Okay, one more, especially with Splatterhouse, it's so short, or it's not so short, but it's short compared to Bonk. So I feel like I can do more of the runs. I'm like, okay, well if I just do one more, it's only another 15 or so minutes. It's not that much extra time.
The dog developer just said almost the exact same thing, that especially on shorter runs, it's so easy to reset. So easy to try it out again. Yeah. By the way, Timbo Slice is recommending JJ and Jeff for your next speedrun. Have you played that one yet?
I have played a little bit of JJ and Jeff. Chat would love for me to play more JJ and Jeff, and I don't think it's my humor. I don't know.
It's a weird game to say, and then it gets really, the game, in my opinion, doesn't make sense sometimes when you play through it. With some of the sending you back into different parts of the level, I was not the biggest fan of that game, to say the least. If you're a glutton for punishment, it's a good game, says Timbo Slice. Well, see, there you go. Okay, well, there you go. There you have it. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for taking this time. I think it's really interesting to see, what can happen. A year ago, did you ever think you'd be right here talking on a podcast about speedrunning Bonk games?
No, I often think about if I could tell my elementary school self, hey, when you're older, you're going to stream on this video game thing, and you're going to play this game a lot, and you actually you're going to have the world record in it. I think my little kid self would be like, what the heck are you talking about? What? I don't know what I would think.
I should. This is the simplest question I've totally forgot. What was it like to actually get the world record? How did it feel to accomplish that?
Well, the first time, we were really excited. And then 24 hours later, we didn't have it.
Thanks, John.
But no, it was awesome. It was a really cool experience to just work so hard on something. And I think especially right now when a lot of stuff is out of control, you don't have a control around what's going on. Mm-hmm. It was nice to have something that you kind of had, I couldn't guarantee that I would get the best time, but I could keep working on it and work towards a goal. And it was just nice to have something that was like consistent that you could work towards. And then when we actually got it the other day, I mean, I always say we did it, and my community like gives me a hard time, but I really do feel like, you know, we all worked on, you know, like they came every night as I played and like having their support there really felt like we were working on it together to get the world record. And then afterwards I'm like shaking, you know, like
then you can enjoy it after that.
Yeah.
I gotta say, that's something that you and I can at least commiserate on. Basically, every world record I ever got in a Bonk game, John, less than 24 hours would take it again. And I don't know if he just waits for us to you know, to beat his time and then he goes and does it. I don't know. But he was, and funny enough, this whole thing it's kind of coming full circle here, because the first guest on this podcast was Great John, and we talked about, like I said, people who listen and watch this podcast is probably sick and tired of Bonk and TurboGrafx. I get it, but you know, it shows you, you know, how different people get involved and how a game can grow and community can grow and all that kind of stuff. And as much as I'm more competitive with myself than I am with other people, it helps. It helps to have somebody, you know, pushing you along, or you can, you know, compare times, that kind of thing. I think it's all part of the same thing, and it's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's so cool to actually get to talk to you and you know, face to face, and we can
You're a
kind
real
of
person.
Yeah, I know.
It's what I got to tell you. It's one of these things that I take for granted now, being on COVID, because I've been pretty locked down myself. My parents are older, and I didn't want to get them sick or anything like that. So I've taken this thing very seriously, and I miss seeing and talking to people in real life. So the podcast has been like a godsend, being able to actually talk with people and, you know, share strats. We should do this more often. If hopefully we'll get the chance to do it in real life at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Where can, if people are all interested in your stream and your speedrunning, where can people find you and the wonderful community you've created?
Just at Princess Za on Twitch, Princess_Za.
Best screen name on Twitch. Okay, that's right. I'll stop praising Bonk. Okay, folks, I get it. Thanks so much for taking the time and sharing some of the insights and the interesting story. I really do appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Thanks everyone for listening and watching. If you're enjoying the podcast, subscribe, leave a review. All those things go a long way to helping out the podcast. If you'd like to continue the conversation, I'm on Twitter @LatMackey, or you can also join the LatMackey Discord, where we have a sequence break channel. We talk about guests, we have questions. It's really interactive, really fun. Please feel free to stop on by. Thanks so much. See you in the next one.